All right, we're on live, so let me talk to the people and the future video viewers that we are still reading Oxen of the Sun. We've been diving very deeply into this. I think today we might actually read a little bit more because we have one new reader, our new person here with us, and perhaps two if Darren uh, shows up. I know he logged on early, so he may join us in a while.
Could I humbly suggest, based on the richness of this chapter, that before we move, as we move in sequence, before we move to the next reader, we maybe pause and just say, okay, is there anything to discuss?
Yeah,
Because if we
and
get
actually,
too far ahead, we lose the thread, you know?
yeah, I'm gonna put a bit of a frame on this
Okay.
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this particular scene, we are at the Hollis Street Hospital,
Right.
where ladies go to give birth. Upstairs, we have the women in labor. Downstairs, we have a small room with a bunch of drunken medical students. And drunken medical students plus some hangers-on. Stephen Dedalus, who is drunker than the Lord himself, and Leopold Bloom, who has come to check on a woman that he knows, Mrs. Purefoy. And Mrs. Purefoy has been in labor, hard labor, for 3 days. That's why he's come to the hospital. He's concerned about her. Now, a lot of this chapter has many different levels, but one level to realize is that Joyce is using the history of English language styles to mimic the development of a fetus and finally the birth of a child. And underneath all of this historical stuff, this historical mimicking of different styles, as is his wont, Joyce is putting a lot of subversive stuff in it. It's not an easy read, but I think particularly on this go around, I think we have, as a group, found it pretty fascinating.
So.
Mhm.
Of what he's doing here. It's almost like you're learning code, a very deep code that you don't want the cultural watchdogs to notice what's really going on. Okay, so in today's thing, we are actually approaching the birth, which is in a sense going to be symbolized by a fierce rainstorm and strong lightning. So that's as much of a frame as I'm gonna give. If you're not familiar with the chapter, don't be surprised if you find it difficult to keep up with what's going on. But let me assure you that there is meaning and interesting meaning in all of it. It just Joyce, demands our development as readers. He treats us as if we are developing fetuses as well. Okay, all that being said, I will begin reading. But
Duncan,
Dave
I'm here.
Little. Okay, Lois is here. She needs to be put on the reading list.
Mhm.
And Dave Little, you wanted to add something before we started.
Sorry, you broke up. Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yes. I'm wondering, given the richness and that's maybe code for difficulty of each section, if when one reader's done, before we move to the next reader, we just kind of find out if people want to talk about what's just been read. Because I find that if we get too many people reading without a pause, we lose threads.
I think
Yes, and I hear what you're saying. I am actually going to make the subversive suggestion that we read, everybody who's on the chat list gets a chance to read it straight through. And then we're going to come back, and we're going to come back to the very beginning of today, back to the Thereto Punch Costello. So we're going to do it kind of the way we do it in Dante. We read a lot, and then we
Perfect.
come back and we read pieces and do exactly what you're talking about, Dave.
Perfect. That would be great.
Okay. Okay, if that works for you, it works for me. All right, there we go. I'm on page 357 in Wordsworth. Thereto Punch Costello roared out vainly, Etienne chanson, but he loudly bid them, Lo, wisdom hath built herself a house, this vast, majestic, long-stablished vault, the crystal palace of the Creator, all in apple pie order, a penny for him who finds the pea. Behold the mansion reared by Deetle Jack, see the malt stored in many refluent sack, in the proud cirque of Jack John's bivouac. A loud crack of noise in the street here, alack, bawled back, loud on left Thor thundered. In anger, awful, the hammer hurler, came now the storm that hissed his heart. And Master Lynch bade him have a care to flout and wit wanton, as the god self was angered for his hell-prate and pagantry. And he that has erst challenged to be so doughty waxed pale, as they might all mark, and shrank together, and his pitch that was before so hot uplift was now all of a sudden quite plucked down, and his heart shook within the cage of his breast as he tasted the rumor of that storm. Next reader, please.
Then did some mock and some jeer, and Punch Costello fell hard again to his yale, which Master Lenham vowed he would do after, and he was indeed but a word and a blow on any the least colour. But the braggart boaster cried that an old nobo daddy was in his cups. It was much what indifferent, and he would not lag behind his lead. But this was only to dye his desperation. As he cowed, he crouched in Horn's hall. He drank indeed at one draught to pluck up a heart of any grace, for it thundered long rumblingly over all the heavens, so that Master Madden, being godly certain whiles, knocked him on his ribs upon that crack of doom, and Master Bloom at the braggart's side spoke to him calming words to slumber his great fear, advertising how it was no other thing but a hubbub noise that he heard, the discharge of fluid from the thunderhead. Look you, having taken place, and all of the order of a natural phenomenon. Sylvia.
But was young Boastheart's fear vanquished by calmer words? No, for he had in his bosom a spike named bitterness, which could not be words, be done away. And was he then neither calm like the one, nor godly like the other? He was neither as much as he would have liked to be either. But could he not have endeavoured to have found again in his youth the bottle holiness that then he lived withal? Indeed, no, for grace was not there to find that bottle. Heard he in that clap of the voice of the god bring forth, or what Calmer said, a hubbub of phenomenon. Heard? Why, he could not but hear unless he had plugged him up the tube, understanding, which he had not done. For through that tube he saw that he was in the land of phenomenon, where he must for a certain day die, as he was like the rest to a passing show. And would he not accept to die like the rest and pass away? By no means would he, though he must not. Would he make more shows according as men do with their wives, which phenomenon has commanded them to do by the book law? Then wotted he not of that other land which is called, believe on me, that is the land of promise, which behoves.
I think Sylvia just froze up.
Oh, really?
Oh no, I'm getting her. I'm hearing you,
Oh.
Sylvia.
Me
Oh,
too.
sorry. It must be me that froze up.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
And you're doing a wonderful job, Sylvia. Just wanted to throw that in.
I love that. I love it when we freeze. Behoves the king delightful, and shall be forever, where there is no death and no birth, neither wiving nor mothering, at which all shall come as many as believe on it. Next.
Yeah, I guess that's me. Yes, Pius had told him of that land, and Chaste had pointed him to the way. But the reason was that in the way he fell in with a certain whore of an eye-pleasing exterior, whose name, she said, is Bird in the Hand. And she beguiled him wrong ways from the two path by her flatteries, that she said to him as, "Ho, you pretty young man, turn aside hither, and I will show you a brave place." And she lay at him so flatteringly that she had him in her grot, which is named Two in the Bush, or by some learned, carnal concupiscence. That was it, what all in the company that sat there at commons in manse of mothers, the most lusted after. And if they met with this whore Bird in the Hand, which was within all foul plagues, monsters, and a wicked devil, they would strain the last, but they would make at her and know her. For regarding believe on me, they said it was not else but notion, and they could conceive no thought of it. For first, Two in the Bush, whither she ticed them, was the very goodliest grot, and in it were 4 pillows, on which there were 4 tickets, with these words printed on them: pick-a-back, and topsy-turvy, shame-face, cheek by jowl, and second, for that all foul plague, all pox, and the monsters, they cared not for them, for preservative had given them a stout shield of oxen gut. And third, that they might take no hurt neither from offspring, that it was that wicked devil, by virtue of this same shield, which was named Killchild. So were they all in their blind fancy, Mr. Cavil, Mr. Summertime's Godly, Mr. Ape Swilltail, Mr. False Franklin, Mr. Dainty Dixon, young Boasthard, and Mr. Cautious Calmer. Wherein, O wretched company, were ye all deceived, for that was the voice of the god that was in a very grievous rage, that he would presently lift his arm up and spill their souls for their abuses, and their spillings done them contrariwise to his word, which forth to bring brenningly biddeth. Orla, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Should we go back at this point to the beginning?
No, we'll keep on going, Orla. We're going to go through the whole reading list, and then we're going to go back to where we started today.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
Thursday, 16th June, Patrick Dignam laid in clay of an apoplexy, and after hard drought, please God, reigned a bargeman coming in by water, a 50 mile or thereabout, with turf, saying the seed won't sprout, fields athirst, very sad coloured, and stunk mightily, the quags and tofts too. Hard to breathe, and all the young quicks clean consumed without sprinkle, this long while back, as no man remembered to be without. The rosy buds all gone brown and spread out blobs, and on the hills naught but dry flag and faggots that would catch at first far, all the world saying, for aught they knew, the big wind of last February, a year that did havoc the land so pitifully, a small thing beside this barrenness. But by and by, as said, this evening after sundown, the wind sitting in the west, biggish swollen clouds to be seen as the night increased, and the weatherwise pouring up at them, and some sheet lightnings at first and after, past 10 of the clock, one great stroke with a long thunder, and in a brace of shakes all scamper pell-mell within door for the smoking shower. Next, please.
The men making shelter for their straws with a clout or kerchief, womenfolk skipping off with the kirtles catched up soon as the pour came. In Ailey Place, Bagot Street, Duke's Lawn, thence through Merrion Green, up to Hollis Street, a swash of water running that was for before bone dry, and not one chair or couch or speaker seen about, but no more crack after that force. Over against the Right Honourable Mrs. Justice Fitzgibbon's door, that is to sit with Mr. Healy, the lawyer, on the college lands. Malachi Mulligan, a gentleman's gentleman that had come from Mr. Moore's, the writers, that was a papish, but is now, folks say, a good Williamite, chanced again Alec Bannon in a cut bob, which are now in with Dan's cloak of Kendall Green. That was a new got to town from Mullingar, with the stage where he cause with Malachi Mal's brother will stay a month yet till Saint Swithin, and asked what is the earth he does there. He bound home, and he to Andrew's horns been stayed for to crush a cup of wine. So he said, but would tell him of a skittish heifer, big for her age, and beef to the heel, and all this while poured with rain, and so both together onto horns. There Leopold Bloom of Crawford's Journal, sitting snug with a covey of wags, lightly brangling fellows, Dixon Jr., scholar of My Lady of Mercy, Vincent Lynch, a Scots fellow, William Madden, T. Lenehan, very sad for a racing horse he fancied, and Stephen Dedalus, Leopold Bloom, there for a languor he had, but was now better. He having dreamed tonight a strange fancy of his dam, Mrs. Moll, with red slippers on a pair of turkey trunks, which is taught by those in Ken to be for change, and Mistress Purify, there, that got in through pleading her belly, and now on the stools, poor body, 2 days past her term. The midwives sore put it to it, and can't deliver. She queasy for a bowl of rice slop that is a shrewd dyer up of the insides, and he breathed very heavy more, that good and should be a bully boy on the knock stake say, but God give her some issue. Next, please.
Who's the next reader?
It's Darren, I think.
If Darren, do you want to read?
You're on mute, Darren.
You hear me?
Yeah, we can
No,
now.
yes,
Yeah. Apologies for earlier. I was just having trouble with my sound.
no problem.
Yeah. Where did we leave off again?
We're what?
360 if you're on Wordsworth.
Oh, sorry, just the last few words. I'm following it online.
Okay.
Oh,
But should be a bully boy from the knocks, they say, but God give her soon issue.
mhm.
Okay. God give her soon issue. 'Tis her 9th chick to live, I hear, and Lady Day bit off her last chick's nails, that was then a 12-month, and with other 3 all breastfed, that died written out in a fair hand in the King's Bible. Her hub 50 odd, and a Methodist, what takes the sacrament, and is to be seen any fair Sabbath with a pair of his boys off Bullock Harbour, dapping on the Sound with a heavy braked reel, or in a punt he has trailing for flounder and pollock, and catches a fine bag, I hear. In some an infinite great fall of rain, and all refreshed, and will much increase the harvest. Yet those in Ken say, after wind and water, fire shall come, for all a prognostication of Malachi's almanac. And I hear that Mr. Russell has done a prophetical charm of the same gist out of the Hindustanish for his Farmer's Gazette, to have it 3 things in all but this a mere fetch, without bottom of reason for old crones and bairns. Yet sometimes they are found in the right guess, with their queerities, no telling how. Shall I continue? Or next?
Okay.
With this came up Lenehan to the feet of the table to say how the letter was in that night's Gazette, and he made a show to find it about him, for he swore with an oath that he had been at pains about it. But on Stephen's persuasion, he gave over the search and was bidden to sit nearby, which he did mighty brisk. He was a kind of sport gentleman that went for a merry andrew or honest pickle, and what belonged of women, horseflesh or hot scandal, he had it pat. To tell the truth, he was mean in fortunes, and for the most part hankered about the coffee houses and low taverns with crimps, ostlers, bookies, Paul's men, runners, flatcaps, waistcoaters, ladies of the bagnio, and other rogues of the game, or with a chanceable catchpole or a tipstaff, often at nights till broad day, of whom he picked up between his sack possets much loose gossip. He took his ordinary at a boiling cock's, and if he had but gotten into him a mess of broken victuals or a platter of tripes with a bare tester in his purse, he could always bring himself off with his tongue, some randy quip he had from a punk or whatnot, that every mother's son of them would burst their sides. The other, Costello that is, hearing this talk, asked, was it poetry or a tale? Faith, no, he says, Frank, that was his name. 'Tis all about Kerry cows that are to be butchered along of the plague. But they can go hang, says he with a wink, for me with their bully beef a pox on it. There's as good fish in this tin as ever came out of it. And very friendly he offered to take some of the salty sprats that stood by, which he had eyed wishly in the meantime, and found that the place which was indeed the chief design of his embassy, as he was sharpest. Mort au vache, says Frank, then in a French language, that had been indentured to a brandy shipper that has a wine lodge in Bordeaux, and he spoke French like a gentleman too. From a child, this Frank had been a do-not, that his father, a Hedborough, who could ill keep him in school to learn his letters and the use of the globes, matriculated at the university to study the mechanics. But he took the bit between his teeth like a raw colt and was more familiar with the justiciary and the parish beadle than with his volumes. Next.
Deborah, did you want to read?
No.
One time he would be a play actor, then a settler or a welsher, then not would keep him from the bear pit and the cocking mane. Then he was for the ocean sea or to hoof it on the roads with the Romany folk, kidnapping a squire's heir by favor of moonlight, or fecking maize linen, or choking chicken behind a hedge. He had been off as many times as cat has lives, and back again with naked pockets as many more to his father, the headborough, who shed a pint of tears as often as he saw him. What says Mr. Leopold with his hands across was that what says Mr. Leopold with his hands across, that was earnest to know the drift of it. Will they slaughter all? I protest I saw them but this day morning going to the Liverpool boats, says he. I can scarce believe 'tis so bad, says he. And he had experienced of a little brood beasts and of springers, greasy hoggers, and weather wool, having been some years before actuary for Mr. Joseph Cuff, a worthy salesmaster that drove his trade for livestock and meadow auctions hard by Mr. Gavin Lowe's yard in Precious Street. The end. For now.
Okay, that's the end for now. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go back to where we
Anne
started.
gets to read. Sorry, Anne
Oh, I'm
hasn't read.
sorry.
Yes,
No,
please.
you thanks, Orla, but I can't find where you are. Can you give me the name, the start of the paragraph, please?
Um,
And it's a huge paragraph. Are you in the Gabler edition?
yeah, you
No,
have
I'm
to
not.
go with
Okay.
Mr.
Are you in Wordsworth?
Mr. Gavin Lowe's yard.
Gavin's yard. Okay,
In
thank
Precious
you.
Street.
Precious
Just
Street.
came off. Mr. Gavin's yard.
In,
Did you do a lot?
in Precious Street.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Sylvie.
326.
No, I'm way different to everybody else. I've a Penguin Long Edition. I find it, but I'm fine. I'll listen to you there for a second and I'll be catch up then. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Well, we're going to go back to Punch Costello roared out mainly Etienne Sachon.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. Have at it, folks.
Roasted minute.
I'll just once again point out that Punch Costello lives up to his name. He punctuates. You know, at least in these two examples. After there's all this very labyrinthic language, then Punch Costello comes in and just kind of clears everything away. Kind of like what's going to happen with the black crack of noise in the street.
Punctuation is a very appropriate word, Duncan, because you see the Etienne chanson in the draft of this, but not in the text. The typist missed it. There's a comma between those two words.
Ah,
And Etienne is French. Dave, you can check me here. I understand to be French for Stephen.
True.
So he's actually saying, Stephen.
Okay.
No!
Oh, is it? Oh.
That's but he loud them bid low, and the he loudly is Stephen loudly build them. No.
Loudly bid them low. Wisdom is golden.
I just say that punctuation is an apt topic to raise.
So is there an implication here that you know these superstructures that Stephen Dedalus is holding forth with his talk, is he a little bit analogous to the Crystal Palace? Which, for those who may not know, the Crystal Palace was this very complicated, modernish building in London.
Exhibition.
Yeah, the exhibition there.
Yeah.
I mean, it does say Crystal Palace of the creator, you know, like Crystal Palace is there.
Crystal Palace of the creator. All in, and then like being Punch Costello, all in apple pie order. A penny for him who finds the pea, which is, you know, kind of Punch Costello's speech.
Yeah.
I thought it might be the heavens, the Crystal Palace.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Could be all of the above. But look at the first thing. Look at the first line in the song. I assume this is a song. Behold the mansion reared by Deedle Jack. To my ear, Deedle is very close to Daedalus.
Right.
And we know that Stephen has been holding forth with all of his erudition, probably to the mystification of everybody else who happens to be at the table.
It's supposed to be a parody of the rhyme, The House That Jack Built.
Mm-hmm.
Beetle means skillful, according to Sloat. Cunning.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Deedle, Daedalus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like the classical Daedalus was a great constructor of the labyrinth at Knossos. I suppose you could. I mean, I think it's whatever you want to have here, you know, yourself.
Yeah.
There are so many references that it could be from that you couldn't begin to work your way through them.
That's true. Mm-hmm. There's certainly a multiple possibilities.
I don't even know who's singing this song. I don't know if it's Costello or Stephen, or if it's even a song. You know, if it's just a rhyme.
If you don't know, we're all damned.
Well, you know, damned of the world unite, you know.
Well, the next time Sylvia goes to Oxford, we will have her ask the question there.
Ask the question.
But we can rescue ourselves easily, just simply by going to the next line. A black crack a noise in the street here, alack, bawled back. Loud on left, Thor thundered in anger, awful the hammer hurler. Came now the storm that hissed his heart.
Yeah, well, Thor is Zeus. This is the wrath of Zeus on these characters for their offense against the sacred cattle.
Oh,
Right.
See, the reminders of the. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
No.
Please carry on.
Yeah, you're right.
I will add that the sacred cattle happen to be the women in labor upstairs.
No, the sacred cattle are the topics of contraception, abortion, childbirth, and everything else sexual. You see, they're the sacred cattle.
No, really?
And Horn, the House of Horn is Horn is the founder of the hospital. He is Helios. And then Helios has two daughters who tend the cattle. They look after these sacred cows. These are the stuff you're not allowed to talk about in Ireland at the time. Even when I was young, you couldn't mention the word abortion. And you certainly couldn't mention contraception. These boys are all making fun of it. And they are offending the sacred cattle, and they're in a sense killing it. They're arguing against it, against those things. The case is for and against. And the two nurses, what are they called? Callan and Quigley. They're Phaetusa and Lampetie, the two daughters of Helios that tend the cattle. And Ulysses' boys kill one and eat it. They cook it first, but famously it moves while it's on the spit. You can't kill the sacred cattle, you see. They don't die, and they famously moo as they're being cooked.
Oh, no.
And the skins begin to crawl away, minus the flesh. So it's a real weird scene. But those are the nurses, and they've just abused the two nurses. And there's Zeus, the crack of thunder in the sky is Thor. Thor is the Viking or the Nordic Zeus. Like it's all run together, you know, along with the modern theme. But the key to it, as Sylvia said last week, she had a word. Is the key to it is the sacred cattle that you know. These are all the sacred cows of the Irish state that you must not discuss, only in whispers and in the privacy of your own kitchen. You know, and once you see it like that, it all makes sense. Then you don't have to worry about all those bloody 32 names that I was swearing at last time.
Well, yeah, that's true. But just a little bit later, they're going to talk about actual cattle.
Yeah, and Prussia Street.
Yeah, and the papal bull.
Where the boys, because of the hoof and mouth disease, are urging that those cattle be destroyed.
There you
Whereas
go.
Stephen Dedalus and Leopold Bloom actually unite against that idea.
Yeah.
They say, no, there's a better solution. There is a way to cure the hoof and mouth disease.
Yeah.
So we got the literal and the metaphorical and 10 other levels as well. By the way, welcome, Darren. I'm glad you were finally able to tune in here.
Yeah, thanks. No, yeah, it was a bit of trouble initially. Hopefully not next time.
Yeah, I will tell you, I went through every possible
I joined during an
possible.
interesting chapter. It's like, talk about jumping in the deep end.
Yeah, that is definitely jumping in the deep end. Of course, you could have appeared at Circe also.
Oh, God, yeah. I have to admit, that's my least favorite job. It needed an edit, dare I say.
I'm sorry, I have to go pick up my granddaughter from school.
Okay, well, thank you for coming, and please come join us again.
I will be back next Tuesday. And again, thank you for letting me join you. I enjoyed it. I'll be more prepared next week.
Okay.
Bye.
All right.
Bye,
Look forward
Deborah.
to see you.
Bye,
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So, Joe, is it Stephen who's singing the song then? Because it says, Master Lynch bade him, I'm assuming Stephen, have a care to float, and wit wanton as the god self was angered for its hell-prating paganry. So is that Lynch's? So you have the song sung, and then you have a crack of thunder, and then you have Lynch telling, I'm assuming Stephen, like, watch your step, buddy.
Yeah,
Divine retribution may be a possibility here. Is that sort of reading backwards into that?
Well, that comment sounds to me more appropriate to Costello.
Okay.
So that's why I he sang out mainly Stephen's song, but Stephen loudly bid them no, low, and then that we don't know who creates this rhyme, and then Lynch tells Costello, listen, you're going too far.
Got it. Okay.
I think Stephen has really gone too far on things much yet. But like I said, take what you like, whatever you haven't.
So I just want to be clear. So for you, and Master Lynch bid him have care to float. You're saying the antecedent of the pronoun him would be, in your view, Costello.
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
I'd put my money on Costello if there was a bet.
Right. Right.
But I'm not at all sure. Open to correction if someone else can see. I am happy to.
I think that's good. Like, I have to say, my sort of retired grade 8 teacher self, if this were handed into me, would be circling the pronouns and going pronoun reference question mark.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Joyce does that somewhat deliberately.
Yeah. And did Master Lynch? So this is a very speculative question. Does Master Lynch have the mental wherewithal to follow what Stephen has been saying? I mean, to me, most of what Stephen Dedalus has been saying in this chapter, as he's drunk as a lord and spinning his mental wheels as fast as possible, is that Stephen Dedalus is talking to himself.
Yeah. Yeah. He's talking out loud. Yeah. Yeah. To himself. And he's very unlikely candidate to understand all that stuff, for sure. And very unlikely Joyce would write him that way, because he's modelled on Vincent Cosgrave.
Mhm.
Wait. Do we actually think that Stephen is speaking is actually speaking in this register with his friends, or do you think it's just a stylized kind of literary?
We're actually referring to some pages before today,
Oh, okay.
where Stephen is drunk as a lord, and he's holding forth quite loudly, and he is if you go back to the earlier pages, and actually I'll put a link so you can listen to some of our discussions over the past couple of weeks where we're parsing what Stephen has said.
Yeah.
Stephen hadn't spoken.
The part at the end of Cersei where he drunkenly repeats his interpretation of Hamlet again, but does so in less articulate.
Yeah. Well, here in Oxen of the Sun, he has some really interesting, obtuse things to say. And we have spent I think it was 2 weeks ago, we spent an hour and a half on one paragraph of Stephen's talking, because it was so convoluted and interesting, I should add. It's fascinating stuff, but it's like listening to a drunk genius holding forth.
Right.
Yeah, you could spend a month on the first paragraph of Aeolus, I guess, in the look at the modality of the visible, etc.
Proteus.
Sorry. Oh yeah, Aeolus is the newspaper one.
Okay,
Yes,
so anyway.
Ulysses.
Since we're going back before that, just to, the in between page 356, the bottom of the page where we were last week, and the end of the first paragraph, when they mentioned Tufet and you were talking about child sacrifice. Well, someone sent me today a review of Marilyn Robinson's thing from Genesis.
I just started reading it.
Well, they sent me a review from London Review of Books.
That's why I'm reading it.
Yeah, so I just thought when they talk about child sacrifice in the review of the book, so I'm doing the quick bit. Tufet and the child sacrifice and the whole notion that what Marilyn Robinson's talking about, or through James Butler, who did the review, it's quite interesting. I was there going, oh, we've just been reading that.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole biblical reference. So anyway, after this, you can all read it.
Okay.
What's it called?
Reading
which review is it?
It's London Review of Books. Hold on. James Butler, trivialized to death reading Genesis, in the London Review of Books.
Thank you.
Can you hold it back a little bit, Lois? Can you hold it?
I have to. Oh yeah. What's it called?
Bit to the right.
All right, I need two hands. Hold on.
Okay.
Marlon, and what's the name of it at the top? Reading
Genesis.
Orla, I had just listened to the podcast of the London Literary Times. So that's how I was aware of this.
Okay, thank you, Lois.
Okay, so Okay, now the podcast I can probably access. I probably cannot access the actual print.
You can read free articles because somebody sent it to me and I couldn't access it. So I went in and then accessed it as myself.
Oh.
So you can read a number of free articles per week.
Okay, okay. Anyway, coming back to this first paragraph that we read today, we have the lightning, we had the thunder, and then we have, basically Punch Costello and Master Linehan just joking about it. And then we're going to come in and Stephen is just terrified. I think that whoever made the remark about angering the gods, that was just a joke. But Stephen actually emotionally feels that way.
And Joyce was frightened by thunder.
Yeah, terrified of thunder.
Just like my mother.
Well, don't bring her to Texas then.
Oh,
Oh God.
she used to hide under the stairs. We had a little cubby hole.
Ah,
No, really?
Yeah.
The whole family? She would collect you all and
Well, just not my father, but my brother and I.
okay.
Well, is that an Irish thing? I remember when we did thunder, curtains would be closed in our house.
That's right.
That great
And the other thing,
Yeah.
and the other thing was my grandmother used to do this. She was also afraid of thunder and lightning, but because there was no stairs in her house, it was a one-level bungalow. What herself and my aunt, the daughter that lived with her, what they do is they cover the mirrors with coats and blankets, and then they cover their heads with coats.
Yeah, that's it. I remember that. I was going to say the covering of the mirrors. Sisters had particular mirrors they had to get to and get
Yeah.
covered. Like it's not an Irish thing, they're kind of worshipping the weather gods,
Yes, yes.
well, and
I'm often
in my
curious
family
as to what the
history,
origin
there's a
of it was.
story of a great grandmother
Yeah.
who was sitting in front of a fireplace during a lightning storm, and the lightning came down the chimney and got her.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
Sure.
yeah, yeah.
He must have been wicked.
Very.
Great grandmother?
I'm sorry.
Well,
Who gets struck by lightning except the wicked?
Well, maybe someone holding a poker,
obviously spoken by someone who has not been struck by lightning.
Do you know
You
that
better be careful there, Lois. That's tempting the gods.
I'm
you know it.
tempting fate? I think I'll go close my window.
You're like Punch Costello there, you're getting close.
Yeah, but now that you're reading Genesis, you'll know that it's all totally unfair. That there's that God does things for some people, does the good don't get the good things happen to them sometimes.
Yeah.
But I come from Derry. Where's Dave? I come
Here.
from Derry.
Very good.
And Saint Colin Kill said that nobody would die from being struck with lightning in Derry. So we felt a bit invincible up there. Now I live in Dublin. I don't know what the story is.
You want to check that out, Sylvia? Did you bring that Derry invincibility with you?
I don't know. I'm not sure I've tested. I'm going to say, well.
What's that story about an appointment in Samara where he sees Death somewhere and he runs away? And it turns out Death was surprised to see him. He was supposed to be in Samara.
Yep.
So
Okay.
And then after
So-
this, we have Bloom trying to console Stephen.
Yes, well, we have, okay, so let's go to that line. We have a line in the middle of that first paragraph. But the braggart boaster cried that an old noble daddy was in his cups. It was much what indifferent, and he would not lag behind his lead. But this was only to dye his desperation, as cowed he crouched in Horns Hall. So, at least to me, they're talking about Stephen. Stephen makes one last thrust against the gods before he melts down. Stephen melts down. You know, that's that, as he, to dye his desperation. I'm going to tell you, but this was only to dye Stephen's desperation, as cowed Stephen crouched in Horns Hall. He drank indeed at one draught to pluck up a heart of any grace, for it thundered long rumbling over all the heavens. Blah, 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 blah. So Stephen Dedalus is the braggart and the boaster is melting.
Okay, so you're seeing the braggart boaster as Stephen then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He makes one last thrust against the gods.
Right.
Downs a drink and then starts falling apart. And Bloom notices it.
And are you saying that the braggart boaster should be Stephen because he'd be the only one there that would know the term noble daddy from Blake? Like, is that it? Because we're dealing with Punch Costello and Lenihan, and mid paragraph we seem to switch to Stephen.
Yeah, right. No,
but I'm assuming it's. Sorry, go ahead, Duncan.
Hmm.
Oh,
right. Okay. So it makes sense. I see this. So you're saying, okay. So the braggart boaster. So we're doing a switch. We're moving from Costello and Lenihan to Stephen, and I guess it makes sense. But the braggart boaster cried that old noble daddy was in his cups. Would Lenihan know or Costello know who noble daddy was? But Stephen would, because he's fairly.
I don't think Punch Costello or Lenihan would, but
by process of elimination, then we're saying it's Stephen. No, that makes sense, Duncan. That makes sense.
Dave, give us that reference about noble daddy.
My apologies. I kind of went over it. I believe you do not drop this at a cocktail party, Sylvia, without first confirming. But I believe noble daddy is Blake's term for God.
Oh, right.
William Blake's term for God.
Yes.
Does somebody want to confirm that? But I think that's it.
Blake has a poem called To Noble Daddy.
Here we are.
And so it's definitely Blake and the clouds and all that sort of stuff.
In my remembrance, Joe, it's not a very complimentary term.
No, it would fit in very well in this soiree that the boys are having. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's blasphemous. I mean, from the standard view. But look here, Dave, if you could slide down just another sentence. Let's see. Being godly certain whilst knocked him on his ribs upon that crack of dune, and Master Bloom at the braggart's side spoke to him calming words.
Yes. Okay.
So
Thank
Bloom,
you. That's
Bloom,
right.
Bloom sees what drunk Stephen is melting down in the face of the lightning and the thunder, and goes to talk calming words. And then very soon we're slipping into John Bunyan talk.
Yeah.
We are. I have a word or two to say about that as well.
Okay, so Darren just put a thing in the chat.
Thank you. Thanks, Darren.
It's just to Noble Daddy, the poem you referenced there. Yeah.
Okay, right.
Not a flat deity. I feel like he's referencing maybe the god of Isaac Newton, who Blake wasn't a fan of Eurism, or I guess similar to Eurism anyway. Father of jealousy, calls him.
Yeah. So let's slide to the next paragraph because the Bunyan speak is much clearer.
Right.
You know. So we start off with young boasthards. But was young boasthard's fear vanquished by Calmer's words?
No.
No. For he had in his bosom a spike named bitterness, which could not by words be done away. I suggest that someone read the next sentence after that, and we should just parse this, since this John Bunyan thing is relatively easy to decode. I suggest we just read a sentence at a time and decode it.
Yeah. Anne, do you want to read?
Yeah, I don't mind. Where do you want to read from, Duncan, please?
I just want you to read the next, and was he then? You know, start with and was he then neither?
And was he then neither calm like the one nor godly like the other? He was neither as much as he would have liked to be either. But could he not have endeavoured to have found again, as in his youth, the bottle holiness that then he lived withal?
There we go. Okay,
Indeed.
I think that's a nice
Perfect.
chunk right there.
Okay.
So I mean, this is brilliant on Joyce's part. I mean, Joe, you must love this because he starts out. So if you've read Pilgrim's Progress,
That's right.
it's probably one of the most boring classics possible. I don't know how you found it, but I mean, make sure you're well rested when you read it. And it's come out in various editions. I mean, I've got 2 on my bookshelf. I think I inherited this from my grandfather.
There you
But
go.
it is incredibly boring. However,
Yeah.
I actually read it for a Victorian novel course because a lot of the Victorians picked it up and kind of mimicked the style, and especially Dickens and some of their works.
Yeah.
But what Joyce does here is he picks it up like the Victorians, and it's fairly, you know, it's fairly non-controversial.
Right.
But as we move from this paragraph to the next one, all of a sudden we're talking about bird in the hand, all pox and things like that, and preservative, the stout shield of Oxen got kill child in that. So he goes from a fairly mild imitation of it to just absolutely sending it up in the next paragraph.
Right.
And it's absolutely brilliant.
Particularly
If you've had to struggle through reading the original Bunyan.
There you go.
And you know, Dave, it wasn't intentional, but I was delighted that I passed that on to you, which you read with applause.
Oh, I was hoping to be able to read it because it's one of the best parts of the chapter. I mean, it just becomes absolutely ridiculous. Taking a text which is like serious, boring, and highly moral and degenerating it into talking about encounters with prostitutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that word that Stanislaus used. Remember, we were reading lampooning. That Joyce is his brother's skill at lampooning. And there he goes. You know, he's in full flight. It's fantastic.
But this sentence here, but could he not have endeavored to have found again, as in his youth, the bottle holiness that then he lived withal?
Yeah.
He's really putting the wager on the line there.
Yeah.
he's recognizing that when he was a kid, he would take refuge in Noble Daddy
Yeah.
with no problem.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's questioning, he's terrified, but he can't go back to the standard religion. He's acting as a question.
Is there a tinge of sadness here, or is that just me? That he's lost his faith, which was a bit of a bulwark against things that scared him, like thunderstorms.
Hmm.
I'm sure that would have been true at times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is just like, it's just like the thing where he's, the thunder is terrifying him, and he makes one last declamation against Nobo Daddy, takes a big drink of alcohol, and then melts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's bravado. I mean, we all wish we had refuges at times.
Yeah.
Right.
I love the way he used the word dye. This was just to color to dye. You dye a garment, you change, you pretend it's something or other color. But I often wonder what, as we're on T.S. Eliot in another world, what Joyce and T.S. Eliot had in common. They were such good friends. And it surely was discussions of religion, So, and I think you're picking up a hint of the sadness for sure, Dave, there. That's, yeah, a simpler life he used to lead, sort of a lot easier sort of thing.
Yes, Eliot eventually joined the Church of England, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And a high Anglican, And
The four quartets.
the four
Yes,
quartets.
that's what we're reading.
Don't talk about
on Monday we read.
But that's and they were so influenced by each other. It's amazing.
Yeah, he was trying to bring Virginia Woolf around, who protested a bit too much about
Yeah,
the lack of influence of Joyce on her.
yeah,
Which was
yeah.
interesting.
Just for your information, Darren, we are reading the four quartets on Mondays right now, and
In my end is my beginning.
Yes.
In my end is my beginning. Yeah.
Just the way up and the way down are the same.
Well, let us keep going. We've got all of 16 minutes, and maybe we'll get through this paragraph. So and all these questions. I mean, we got all these either or questions going on.
Yeah.
He was neither and was he then neither calm like the one nor godly like the other? Either or. He was neither as much as he would like to be either. And then the next thing, indeed, not for grace was there to be found that bottle.
Yeah. Not for grace.
And it's interesting that he would use the term bottle, because we know that Stephen, from his actions, has gone from among the refuges after the church, he has gone to the bottle. So I think the use of the bottle holiness is very important or very relevant. And then we have the next thing. Heard he then in that clap the voice of the god bring forth? Or what Calmer said, a hubbub of phenomena.
None.
Yeah, because earlier Bloom was trying to calm his nerves. Just at the end of the last paragraph, right?
Yes, and Bloom is the phenomena man. Bloom is the modern man
Yeah.
Yeah.
who explains things, quote, as phenomena or scientifically. So this is like a one sentence encapsulation of the great Western debate, the
Yeah.
great transition. You know, was it the voice of the god bring forth,
Yeah.
or a hubbub of phenomena?
Hmm.
And would bring forth, we're back to Genesis.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe we should read Genesis on a Monday. That's a joke.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I've told you before. I have a young man. We were reading very slowly. I have a young man who I've been trying to establish a relationship with. He's got some psychological uniquenesses, but he likes the Bible, and we started reading the Bible together.
Yeah.
Which, you know, because I was having trouble keeping him on a topic.
Right.
And it was very fortunate that I suggested we read the Bible, because I've never read the Bible as a continuous thing, and it's been fascinating.
Wow.
It's quite fascinating. Yeah.
Are you still doing that, Duncan? Are you?
Yeah. It's very sporadic. You know, sometimes we go as 4 weeks before we read the next little chapter of it. But yeah. It's going to take me.
Bible? King James or?
Reading the King James. But I also occasionally read kind of a reading and a commentary on the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the idea of doing Genesis on Monday. I think that's a great idea.
Oh, Katrina, please.
I see.
Let's
I
get
see
through
we have
Elliot first.
Skip all the begats.
I see we have a splinter sect here.
You know, the genealogy.
Where it will lead us, you know. Oh, stuff.
All right. Someone read the next sentence after phenomena.
Heard why he could not but hear, unless he had plugged him up the tube, understanding, which he had not done. For through that tube, he saw that he was in the land of phenomenon, where he must for certain one day die, as he was like the rest to a passing show. What's with the tube?
What's with the tube?
Yeah, why is it a tube?
Also, it was like the rest also.
The umbilical cord.
The tube.
The tube. He's got understanding is called a tube.
Very good, very good. Tube and two.
Yeah.
I suppose, test tube.
And you got to plug up that tube.
So this is talking about Bloom, right? We've actually shifted to Bloom, because Bloom's the phenomena man.
Yeah.
And he's the calmer.
He comes.
Calm.
But what we're saying is Stephen did not hear the clap of the voice of the God.
Correct. I think he refers to Stephen. I think you're right, Lois.
So Stephen didn't hear the clap of the voice of God or the hubbub. So we didn't hear whatever it was, whether it was bring forth or it was phenomenon, he didn't hear it because he couldn't hear. He could not but hear unless he plugged him up. So he had to hear it because the only alternative to hearing it would be to plug up the tube, understand it.
Right, which he had not done.
No, he didn't do that.
Right.
Or through that tube, he saw that he was in the land of phenomenon. He must, yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
dear.
that he is Bloom, right? Or
Yeah.
through that tube, Bloom saw that he was in the land of phenomena. So is this telling us how Bloom manages to keep his balance most of the time? Or am I going too far with that idea?
I'm still not sure that he is Bloom. I think he is still Stephen.
I think so too, Lois.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have a genuine disagreement then.
Yeah.
Heard he then, blah, 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 blah. Heard why he could not hear. I still say that's Stephen, unless he, why not Stephen, had plugged him up the tube. That him is a weird placement, but they're talking in strange sense of speech.
Why are he heard he then in that clap, the voice of the God bring forth, or what calmer, and capital C calmer, I'd say, is Bloom said.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So he and calmer are different.
Yeah.
Calmer
Yeah.
is Bloom.
Yeah.
Well, in that sentence, yes, in that sentence, heard he then that clap of the voice, or what calmer? So that he, we definitely know, or I agree that he is Stephen Dedalus. Okay. Whether it's the same he in the next sentence, at this point, I'm not totally convinced.
So Duncan, what I would argue respectfully is if we've had the word heard and heard applied 2 times to Stephen,
Yeah.
so that he could not but hear, and that's why I'm thinking it's still Stephen.
Yeah. And if it's not Stephen, the reference to pious, just a few lines on, will not make sense. Stephen goes around worrying about the popes, like Pope Pius, but Bloom doesn't really, probably not too sure where
That's true. Bloom is not up on his popes.
Not into popes, yeah. Sorry. But there's so many he's there, you could be hopping from one to the other.
And he would make by no means would he think that he was going to die, nor would he make more shows according as men do with wives, which phenomenon has commanded him to do by the book of law, which is multiply, and Bloom has multiplied.
Yeah. And what it? 7:3.
What is you not of the other land, which is called Believe on Me. So this is once again, this is almost going back to the voice of God bring forth.
Yeah.
It's like I say, in that one sentence, this is kind of the modern thing, the switch where most people think that you have to make a choice. You have to make a choice between religion or science. Science being represented as phenomena. And when you get into all your explanations or explanations of phenomena, you're pretty much in the modern time.
Yeah.
And you pretty much left the church at that point. But okay, so if it is he in the thing about the tube understanding, the next sentence, for through that tube of understanding, he saw that he was in the land of phenomena,
Right.
where he must for certain one day die, as he like the rest to a passing show.
Yeah.
Oh my God. By no means would he and make more shows, according as men do with wives, which he not of that other, oh wait, hold on, with wives, phenomena has commanded them to do by the book law.
Okay. Well, that's straightforward, because shows are our lives. If
Yeah.
means we make more lives according as men do with wives, as commanded by the law of God.
Yeah. A he phenomena and a
If it's a
she
show-
phenomena combine to make little phenomena.
Yeah. And our life is just a show we're passing through, and you make more shows. You make 3 or 4, and then you die, and they live on. They make 3 or 4 each, and suddenly there's millions.
Yeah.
So
By the book of the law, go forth and multiply, basically.
yeah, well, what it is to know. So he knew nothing of that other land called believe in God, believe on me.
Then what did he not?
To what is to know. So he knew nothing about this believe in me land.
That is the land of promise which belongs to the King delightful, and shall be forever, where there is no death and no birth, neither wiving nor mothering, at which all shall come, as many as believe on it. Question mark.
Yeah.
Where does that come from in the Bible? Help me out. Where there is no death, no birth, nor wiving, nor mothering.
Well, among other places, there isn't the key one that springs to mind from my education is the questioning of Jesus. A woman marries one man and he dies. She marries another. She marries, I think, 7. In the next world, whose wife is she? And Jesus says, the next world is wives and no husbands and no. That's my understanding now. 60 years ago, it's a long while. I might have it wrong.
Well, we have this constant phenomenon in the Old Testament. There's this constant thing of a guy dying, and then the younger brother is supposed to marry the wife.
Yeah.
Well, and that the commandment is to multiply.
Yeah, but there won't be any of that in the next life.
Yeah,
I remember being guaranteed that there would be a special relationship between my mother and father. That's how it was explained to me at 7 years of age.
Okay.
Yeah, in the book of Revelation, it says he will wipe away every tear from the eye. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things passed away. I think Joyce has added a part about no more wiving and no more.
Yeah. So, and now comes the Pope.
Yeah. And he spells it different. He spelled it pious.
Right, deliberately.
Mm.
The significance of that is never noticed that. Wow. 773.
Because this is kind of like Bunyan. What's the phrase? Apostrophizing things. So pious is a concept, not just a name. So it's like those medieval plays where people were continence and prudence and whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
The capitalization gives it away.
Oh, and we've got 2 of them, pious and chaste.
Yeah.
Probably the Virgin Mary chaste.
Okay.
And then what happens?
Well, I tell you what, we are pressed up against the time limit, and I have to exercise my authority here and ask someone. I think I will ask Darren. Darren, if you would start with yes, Pius told him, and just read to the end of that paragraph, and that's we're gonna leave it today.
Okay. Yes, Pius had told him of that land, and Chaste had pointed him to the way, but the reason was that in the way he fell in with a certain poor of an eye-pleasing exterior, whose name, she said, is bored in the hand, and she beguiled him wrong ways from the true path of her flatteries, that she said to him as, "Ho, you pretty man, turn aside hither, and I will show you a brave place." And she lay at him so flatteringly that she had him in her grot, which is named Two in the Bush, or by some learned carnal concupiscence.
Okay, that's good.
Wow.
So I think if you don't mind, I'm going to just say that this is where we began.
Yeah. Okay.
Where we
Yes,
finished, we
Pius
begin.
told us. And we can talk about that there's really a sleight of hand trick
Correct.
or sleight of word trick happening right there. That's the pivot point. Okay.
Anyway,
Thank you.
Before
Great.
you pull the plug, Duncan, could I just remind everybody about tomorrow? Merchant of Venice, same
Merchant
bad
of Venice.
time, same bad channel. There were only 3 of us last time, which was good, but we could use a few other
We'd
folks.
like more. Yes.
I'll be there tomorrow.
I'm
I'll be there
rowing mightily to get there. I'm rowing mightily to get there. I think.
I hope to be there as well.
Yeah.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Excellent.
Good.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Okay. It's good to be
Okay.
here.
Nice to meet
Thank you
everyone.
all. Thank you
Good
all.
night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Do svidania.